People today, they could spend half their lives over 50. That's a lot of living. So it helps to have a wise friend and fierce defender in your corner. A friend like AARP. So your health lives longer.
This is just slow-mo karate?
Just slow-mo karate.
Your money lives longer.
I just bought that.
I just sold that.
And your happiness lives longer. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Join today.
Welcome to AARP Illinois' virtual event. It's so wonderful to have you with us. AARP is on a mission to connect with individuals across various communities, especially those aged 50 and above. We're here to listen, understand, and address the unique needs of you and your community as we age. Our goal is to enrich your experience by expanding our local activities, providing opportunities for you to discover and engage with all that life has to offer right here in your own community and virtually. As we journey through today's event, we invite you to consider joining our dedicated team of AARP volunteers. It's a chance to make a meaningful impact and help us better serve those 50 plus across the nation. Connect with us and be a part of this vibrant movement toward positive change. Welcome. And let's make this event both fun and transformative.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AARP Illinois' special virtual event. I'm Courtney Hedderman, Senior Associate State Director for AARP Illinois, and I am your Fraud-Fighting Fraudlette. And happy Thanksgiving week. So welcome. Today, I'm extremely honored to be joined by Jessica Prell. Jessica is a Senior Program Manager for the AARP Fraud Watch Network, which I know all of you know all about, but you're going to hear more about that. AARP is fighting every day to protect adults from frauds and scams. And Jessica plays a very key role in that mission. She's not only a leader in this work, but also a very proud veteran. Jessica, thank you so much for your service to our country and for your continued service protecting veterans and their families and really everybody from fraud. We're grateful that you're here.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So before we get started with our discussion, I'd like to remind everyone, if you are listening on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever you're seeing this, you can ask questions, share comments in the social media feed. So please do that while we're meeting today. We'll try to get all of those questions answered. We'll do our best to address anything that you have on your mind. Okay, Jessica, again, thanks for being here. Let's just get started. We're obviously talking about veteran scams, right? So obviously we know the Fraud Watch Network does a whole host of things, right? But we're specifically talking about veterans. And as I obviously said in the intro, you yourself are a veteran. So again, thank you for your service. So maybe can you tell everybody kind of what inspired you to focus your career on fraud prevention, particularly that you've been working on?
Yeah, so absolutely. So not only am I a veteran, I'm the spouse of a former military service member, and I was also a VA social worker where I saw firsthand the direct impact that scams and fraud had on veterans and their families. And so I just feel so fortunate to be able to do this work at AARP alongside our amazing team, focus on helping people spot and avoid scams, as well as those of my colleagues who help support people who find themselves the victims or who have been targeted. So, Courtney, we couldn't obviously do it without you, our wonderful state colleagues, and all of the amazing volunteers across the country who spread these messages as well. So I'm just so appreciative for you having me on today to talk about this.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you so much again for being here. I think it might be okay to ask this. Usually every veteran I know is very proud of the service that they have provided. So can you share a little bit though, what armed forces you are a part of, maybe? Is that okay to say?
Absolutely. So I actually joined the Army National Guard when I was in high school. And then 9/11 happened and I spent quite a few years on active duty doing multiple tours, both in Iraq and stateside. And so very proud of that and the amazing people that I was able to serve with.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. Thank you so very much. Thank you for sharing that. just had to know. I wasn't sure. So thank you for that. Okay. So obviously we're talking about fraud and particularly to veterans. So can you share a little bit how widespread scams really are in targeting veterans today, and kind of why maybe you think that these criminals really focus too on veterans in that particular community?
Yeah. So just a few stats that might kind of blow your mind. So according to the Federal Trade Commission, theft through fraud and scams may have been as high as $158 billion in 2023 alone. And this is accounting for the significant underreporting, because we know that because of blame and shame and other reasons, most people don't report fraud. So they were able to kind of extrapolate the data to estimate that $158 billion. And that's 434 million every day, or about 300,000 every second, that's stolen from Americans by fraud criminals. So if this was a company in the US, for another perspective, it would rank in the top 40 by revenue. So that's just how big of an epidemic this is. And every one of us is a potential target, including veterans who continue to see scams against them rise. AARP just did a survey this year that found veterans are 27% likely to have lost money to fraud and scams, with most losing more than $500. 39% of veterans and military service members received solicitations from someone claiming to be from the Department of Veterans Affairs or another government agency. And then 28% of them were targeted by scams directly related to their military service or military benefits. And so I think that kind of gets to your second question about why are people targeting veterans. And I think number one is they follow the money. So they know that a lot of veterans receive a steady income, or if you're active duty, you're getting that as well. And so they'll do that. And they also just know this very kind of rich culture that service members have, and this trust one another and commitment to service and to the cause. And so they use anything they can against us. And I can talk a little bit more about that emotional manipulation, but that all plays into it.
Yeah, this is incredible. Those statistics are insane. Wow, I'm blown away for sure. I mean, it is astounding that we're in that spot, like that there's that much. Yeah, I'm blown away. Okay, so obviously there probably, I'm assuming, some common scams though that veterans encounter, like whether online or the phone or in person, like whatever the scenario is, but like I'm assuming there's some common ones. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So imposter scams is the most prevalent and financially significant form of fraud against service members. This is the same for the general population as well. So this is when a criminal impersonates a person or an organization that we would normally trust, with the goal of getting us to send money or share financial information, or personal information too, right? Like a social security number or banking information. Some of the top military organizations that are frequently impersonated include, so the Department of Veterans Affairs, TRICARE or other healthcare programs, commanding officers or ranking officers, local and county military service officers, as well as financial institution and lenders. So the main thing we tell people is, remember that the VA, Social Security, or other government officials are never going to request money or cold call you for your full Social Security number through phone, text, email, etc. They're never going to include hyperlinks that take you to outside unofficial or unsecured web pages that ask you for this information. And they're never going to require upfront payment in exchange for VA health services. So we always say, skip the click if you're concerned that something might be legitimate. Instead, go to the agency directly through their official website, app, or using a verified phone number. Yeah, there's a lot. I could keep going, unfortunately. So online shopping scams too is something we're talking a lot about this time of year with the holiday shopping, but it also was the second highest number of reported scams by veterans last year. And sometimes these scams target veterans with like special discounts for their service or things like that, right? But I think that the tips for veterans as well as just the general population remain the same, right? So criminals know that they can create these professional looking websites, and they create social media ads as well that promote popular items we're all looking for at deep discounts. And then when you place an order, the item you get is not what was advertised, or you might not receive anything at all. And so we just say, be cautious of prices that seem unusually low. Avoid clicking on the link, right? Because it can take you to those fake websites. You might think you're going to one retailer, but it's really not them. And the safest way to shop is to use trusted retailers' official, again, websites or apps. And this one, many people might not know, but whenever possible, do use a credit card, because you have stronger consumer protections than other payment methods if it is found to be a scam or fraud.
Yep. Love it. Love it. These are all really great. I'm curious, you've already kind of made reference to this, but there are obviously multiple branches of the military, right? And there are a lot of organizations, or, if you're a veteran, you get an X percentage amount off or something like that. Like how, do you feel like those are why like veterans are even more vulnerable, maybe at times compared to others, like the month of November, and that's kind of a little bit why we wanted to have this conversation now. Veterans Day obviously falls in the month of November. And so, do we think that that's why there's some targeting too? It's just because there are some extra things that maybe veterans are offered legitimately versus then maybe other, civilians. So then they're more vulnerable, I guess. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point. I don't have any data statistics to back that up, but it makes sense, right? That if veterans are used to special benefits or some kind of and actually it brings me to a third scam that I wanted to highlight was employment scams, which we also see continue to grow and ranked third for veterans in 2023 with the highest individual losses associated with them. So the median of $2,250 per reported incident. So significant theft through these types of scams. And examples include fake franchise opportunities, work from home schemes, bogus jobs, again, that are specifically targeting veterans on job boards, right? And the whole goal is just to obtain your personal information from the job application that they can use or sell, or get some financial information out of you as well.
What I know you made reference, like veterans were reporting, like the things that they thought were, they were concerned with, or they've had experience in fraud. So like the number 3 was employment. What were the 1 and 2 again? I want to make sure
so this is all coming from the Federal Trade Commission. They put out a yearly report, right? So the first one was the imposter scams. The second one was the online shopping scams.
Yep.
The third most highly reported is the job scams. But there are a number of other scams that specifically target veterans and their benefits. I'll just mention a few. A lump sum for VA benefits, so that's also known as a benefit buyout scheme, is where scammers offer upfront cash payment in exchange for military disability or pension payments. Pension poaching is also one, unfortunately, where a financial scam targeting veterans perpetrated by shady advisors who promise to help the former service members grow their retirement funds or access extra benefits from the VA. And this type of scam is often directed at service members who might not actually qualify for the VA pensions that they're being promised. And then the victims could be required to pay back those benefits to the government.
Oh, those are all really big ones. I mean, wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. That's incredible. We all have to be very careful out there. Everyone heed Jessica's warnings here, because these are incredible scams that are taking so much money from people. So yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. I'm just curious if you had maybe, without obviously naming any names or anything, but, have you seen or like heard a story of a veteran who maybe was impacted by a scam? Like how could you share that and maybe kind of how it affected them? I think people learn sometimes, we all are using our common sense and we all know a lot of these things, but then it happens, right? It all just happens. And I think those sharing personal stories or sharing stories of what people have experienced kind of helps in learning and growing, and then hopefully maybe then avoiding these types of things. So anything you can share.
So I couldn't agree with you more. And I think putting the personal stories behind these. And actually, AARP has a podcast called The Perfect Scam that tells the stories of people and their families that have been affected by these types of fraud and schemes, including those targeting veterans. There was one recently on one of the episodes that talked about Michael's story. And he was an Iraq veteran, had served 4 years clearing roadside bombs, came home, was soon diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, through dealing with all of that, soon after a divorce and a series of medical emergencies, kind of left him struggling financially and looking for help. And he found some relief that he thought through a financial group, which paid him, again, that lump sum in exchange for 5 years worth of his disability benefits. But he quickly learns it's not what he thought it was. His money problems get worse. He has to declare bankruptcy. And the financial group actually then tried to sue him for breach of contract. And as he prepared to defend himself in all of this, he learns that the entire scheme is illegal. And the people behind it have been getting rich brokering these deals for years, while veterans like Michael and others are left in financial ruin. So like you said, I think it's important to hear these stories from the perspective of the people that experience them. And there's always information that we can take away from that. So if you haven't listened to that episode or others, I highly encourage everyone to check out The Perfect Scam.
Yes, that Perfect Scam podcast is awesome. You can hear that wherever you get your podcasts, everyone. So please check it out, because there's so much information there too, and just a really great resource for sure. Wow, Michael's story just breaks my heart, and I think that a lot of folks obviously in the end have some sort of financial loss. So. But I think you actually alluded to this too, like beyond financial loss, which obviously is, awful, right? It does, there's emotional toll, right, that folks, experience. So kind of what other like emotional toll do like these scams kind of take on veterans and maybe their families, or just really anybody? It's not even just veterans, right? But there's emotional toll, but like other types of things that people kind of experience when they have frauds and scams beyond obviously the financial side.
Yeah. So the emotional impact of these fraud and scams is equally, if not more, devastating for some people, unfortunately. And some of them are reporting feeling, frustration, anger, obviously mistrust, right? Like sadness after experiencing it. And some, unfortunately, the statistics are high for that as well, commit suicide. And so on top of that, there's a loss of relationships, right? Like a lot of times family members can't understand why so-and-so would, fall for this, or how did they believe that? And so there's just a deep impact there as well, where families are torn apart by these types of things. And it's because of blame and that lack of really understanding that this is a crime and it's not the victim's fault. According to a FINRA study, 2/3 of fraud victims reported experiencing at least one of these non-financial costs of fraud to a serious degree. So that includes stress, anxiety, difficulty sleeping, and depression. And victims who lose more money are more likely then to incur these non-financial costs. And so it's just unfortunate. And it also has impact in if you're feeling that you're less likely to report to law enforcement, resulting in an unclear picture of really the true scope of this problem. So as much as we can do to support people, and actually AARP has a great resource. We have a Fraud Watch Network helpline that people can call if they are uncertain if something's a scam, or if they've been the victim of a scam, or if they're concerned about a loved one who might be experiencing a scam. And they have trained specialists that will walk you through kind of what to do next and give you that unbiased support. And then we also have an emotional kind of support group, right? And it's for people or family members who are the victims of fraud. So they can be in these kind of peer-led virtual Zoom groups and understand that they are not alone, and they can support one another through this like emotional healing journey.
I love that. These are great resources to give, because I think there's so much shame that people put on someone who's been a victim of a fraud and scam. It's tremendous. So I'm not surprised that people have, indicated or shared that they're feeling anger and, sadness and depression and even, worse things. And that completely makes sense by, I think our society, it's like, oh, wow, how did you possibly fall for that scam? It's like, well, I'm a human being and I did.
Yeah.
Sadly, I did. I wish I didn't, but I did. And, I think there should be no shame in that, because then more people will report, and not only do they help themselves, but they help other people. Right. So,
right. And we've done some research, and actually people aren't intending to shame and blame the victim. It's just kind of a part of how we talk about scams and fraud as a society, right? And that kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. And so by really focusing on the words that we use and using language that doesn't unintentionally blame a victim, but supports them instead, can really make a big difference.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Well, maybe switching, it's not obviously the topic per se, but just kind of switching gears just a little bit. Obviously, there are a lot of digital platforms now, right? Like people are obviously watching on YouTube and Facebook right now. Even we have social media channels and whatnot that people really engaged in. And I feel like there is an uptick on scams and fraud overall within those platforms and social media overall. And so have you seen or kind of how has that social media changed the way that these criminals really target veterans and just overall everyone?
Yeah, so absolutely. So the Federal Trade Commission warns that social media gives scammers an edge in several ways, right? So they can easily manufacture a fake persona. So that could be a celebrity, that could be somebody you think you know. They could hack into your profile, pretend to be you, scam your friends. And then I think the other edge social media gives them is that they can tailor their approach from what you share on social media. And scammers also place ads on these platforms, which I think might be surprising to people, but that when they place an ad, they can target it based on personal details such as your veteran status, or age or interest or other things. So all of this costs them next to nothing, and they're able to reach billions of people in anywhere in the world. So I would just say to use social media with caution. I think we all tend to share and even overshare details of our lives on social media, which can make it easy for the criminals to obtain this information and target us. So for example, sharing your grandkids' names, talking about them can be mined for the grandparent scam, where you get the call, often in the middle of the night saying, hey, grandma or grandpa, I've been involved in this emergency. Perhaps, it can go a number of different ways. Sometimes they are traveling and they were arrested in a foreign country, or they were driving drunk and accidentally hit a pregnant lady and now need some funds to make bail or whatever you're being told. So just know, for that scam in particular, we say always hang up and verify, call your loved one at a known telephone number, because 99% of the time they're going to answer and say, I'm okay. I'm in bed sleeping. But back to social media, I think just keeping our distance by using privacy settings to limit posts and other information to friends and family, and then just be mindful before you post, especially, public platforms. If you're in a thread about, the Backstreet Boys or whatever, and you're posting something, somebody might use that to develop a commonality with you, and then start a relationship that builds on that kind of common interest and trust.
Yep. Love it. Love it. Absolutely. Sounds good. So, obviously we already talked about a few red flags, frankly, that people should look out for, but, are there other red flags that, a veteran should look out that can spot the scam essentially before it happens, or as it's happening, right? Before it's too late, before it's like maybe somebody would send money or provide their information. It's kind of like the prevention side, right? Like, so what are those? So we know what to look for.
So, and not necessarily veteran specific, but it is, I went through a list of scams, and I think it can be overwhelming to keep up with the latest scams and all the red flags that go with each of them. So I think understanding how criminals work and the warning signs common to most scams can help us stay safer. So first, know that criminals work, and they have a playbook about getting their target, what they call under the ether. So into this heightened emotional state. And whether that's fear or through excitement or love, they know that if they can get their target into that heightened emotional state, they have a good chance of succeeding, because when your brain goes into this emergency mode, it acts on instinct. And it skips over the part of our brain where logical thinking happens. So number one, understand that that's their goal in all of this. And then that kind of alludes to that the majority of scams come at us with three common elements. So unexpected contact that puts us into this heightened emotional state and has a sense of urgency to it. So combined, we think of these as like a trigger that should trigger your sense for a safer response. So many of us as children learned that when our clothing caught on fire, the trigger, we were supposed to stop, drop, and roll.
Right.
This was right.
Right.
So for scams, the trigger is those three common elements is what you should do to take an active pause. And the active pause is this deliberate act where you just kind of slow down, and it allows us to move away from that emotional response and instead engage with logic. So for example, you can think, is this something I've heard about before? Does this scenario even make sense? Is there some way I can verify that this communication is even true? And ultimately, this can help us recognize that this is a scam and protect our money and our sensitive information. Mm-hmm. So we just say, know the triggers, contact out of the blue that puts you in a heightened emotional state and requires urgency, and know the response, which is the active pause.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. These are great. Fantastic tips. So we can obviously spot the scam before it happens. That's awesome. Okay. So you've obviously referenced the Fraud Watch Network, because obviously that's what you're a part of. Yep. And you know, there's a toll-free number and things like that, but can you share a little bit more on the resources of what the Fraud Watch Network provides? Not only for, you know, veterans, of course, but like really ultimately for everyone too.
Yeah. So for veteran specific, we have information and resources on scams targeting veterans and their families on aarp.org/vets fraud center. Again, that's aarp.org/vets fraud center. And there you'll find more information about our Fraud Watch Network, Operation Protect Veterans, and other resources, including we have a really nice Watchdog Alert Handbook Veterans Edition that kind of goes over these scams targeting veterans and what to do if you see them. And again, if you want to report a scam, or if you need help determining if something's a scam or not, or support for a loved one, I encourage you to call our Fraud Watch Network helpline. This number is also listed on the Vets Fraud Center, but it's 877-908-3360. So 877-908-3360 is the phone number to the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline. And on the Vets Fraud Center as well, you'll find a link where you can learn more about the fraud support groups to help people struggling and dealing with the aftermath of a scam.
Awesome. These are great resources. Thank you so much for sharing those. This is great. I think there might be folks, you know, that are listening that are family members or a caregiver of, you know, even just fellow veterans who are supporting someone else, right? And so how can someone that is a family member or a caregiver, fellow, you know, how can we, you know, someone support someone else in staying safe from any fraud or scam? So it's not you just as an individual, but we can all help each other, right? So how can we do that, do you think?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing is just sharing what we know. Because often, again, we're not talking about these things. So as we head into the holidays, talk about it at the Thanksgiving table, or when you're getting together in December with different family members or work groups or whatever it is. I think it's just important. Vigilance is our number one weapon. We did a study that found you're 80% less likely to engage with a scammer if you know about a specific scam. And if you do engage, you're 40% less likely to lose money. So that's really important to validate that. If we know about these things, we can help protect ourselves. So please share this information. If you learn anything in this discussion today, please reach out to somebody, a veteran you know, even somebody who's not. I think there's information and tips that we can all take from it. And then I think the second thing would be to encourage the reporting. We talked earlier about the blame and shame. And so I think just our words matter, and as much as we can do to support one another if we do become the victims of fraud, and encourage people to report, because not only is reporting beneficial because you're documenting what happened to you, if there's any future chance of restitution or a way for you to get your money back. But it also is important to really just understand the scale of this crisis that we're up against, and to get legislators to act and to tackle this issue from a multifaceted approach. So reporting is important on so many levels. And if we can support one another to do that, that would be great.
Yep. Share, report, right? I think that's great.
Yeah.
Those are really great words of wisdom for sure. We're getting closer and closer to the end here now. So any other kind of, last piece of advice that you'd want folks to remember in fraud prevention and as we go into this holiday season and beyond?
Yeah. So I think just if you take away anything, it's just those three common elements of a scam: the communication out of the blue that puts you into a surge of emotion and requires urgency, and let that be your cue to take an active pause.
Love it. Fantastic advice. Want to thank everyone for joining us in this important conversation. I really can't believe we've come to an end. This goes so fast. These conversations go so quickly, and this is no exception. Jessica Prell from the Fraud Watch Network with AARP, thank you again for sharing your expertise and for your service. Appreciate you so very much. Not only obviously, for your service in uniform, but now you're protecting veterans and older adults from fraud. So, you are doing God's work, woman. So thank you so much. Your work with the Fraud Watch Network, particularly though in AARP's broader mission to fight fraud for all adults, is making a huge difference, a real difference. So thank you. We appreciate your time today and your dedication. Thank you. If you or someone you know has experienced a scam, don't stay silent, everyone. Again, we talked about this, but we're going to say it again. Report it, talk about it, learn from it. Please do that. Together, we can build a safer and more informed community if we, in fact, do all those things. So stay alert, stay connected, and most importantly, stay safe. So to all of you, thank you for joining with this enlightening conversation. I've learned a lot. I hope you did too. We look forward to continuing our mission of supporting older adults, caregivers, the entire aging community in Illinois and across the country. Join me next month. It will be all about holiday scams. So join me next month in December for that conversation. Jessica gave these really great information and resources, but I'm going to give it to you again. So for more information regarding fraud, you can call our Fraud Watch Network at 877-908-3360. Again, that's 877-908-3360, or you can visit our website at aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. Again, that's aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. If you'd like more information on AARP's upcoming virtual events, particularly those that are in Illinois, please visit aarp.org/IL. So that's aarp.org/IL. I hope you have a wonderful day, everyone. This concludes our today's virtual event. Happy Thanksgiving, and take care, everyone. Stay safe.